Başlayalım mı? Başlayalım mı?
Şunu yalnız o yetkililere şunu
Oraya doğru devam edeceğim.
bir şey değil galiba.
Sunuş mu?
4 numara düşün.
Sunuş mu?
Sonuç var.
Sunuş yapacağım mı?
Önce sizden başlayalım.
Evet, günaydın saygıdeğer katılımcılar.
Good morning, esteemed participants. My name is Ibrahim Balanuye. I come from Turkish Electricity Transmission Company. I'm Deputy General Manager, and I've been working in this transmission systems planning and its operating for a long time, and I've been working in an senior position for the recent years. I would like to salute you all. Well, you know, today's topic is about the WPP project development and 3,000 megawatt new WPP applications in Turkey, and we are going to discuss the further actions among ourselves. I don't want to spend the time so much. I want to introduce our speakers, and then I will shortly touch upon the summary of what we did so far in the wind energy sector. November 1, 2012 actually was a turn point for us. Before that, we've been doing many activities related to the field, but at that point, at that date, together with the energy market regulatory authorities' actions since 2007, we've been having great steps, and now, at the moment, there is a assumption that 11,000 megawatt there is potential, and at the moment the commissioned, the operating ones are around 3,500 megawatts. TWEC permitted the capacity increase in recent years, and we know that a group of 500 megawatts are in a plant at the moment. We know that due to the agreements and other related steps taken so far, we are informed about these new capacities, but at the moment we have around 3,500 megawatt applications. Actually, they are not real applications in my opinion. The applications are done, and at the moment some of them are waiting for the permissions. Some of them are dealing with some finance problems. And we know that some of these made applications are just waiting in vain. In Turkey, we have the aim to have a wind energy power of 20,000 megawatt, and I hope we are going to reach this target. I mentioned that most of them are at the moment in the licensing process. We already declared the regional capacities of Turkey in general, and for the first time, we believe that regional capacity declaration is better. In the following process, this 3,000 megawatt capacity, the measurements are done to the related applications. Well, in short, the point we've come today, actually, we are talking about a really hard and tough sector in terms of planning, the investment part, the operating part of it. We have problems at every stage, but just like other countries in the world, everyone have gone through these steps, and we will do too. Every country has their own regulatory systems, and of course it's not expected for them all to be the same. Each country has its own regulations and so on, but what is important here is to not have a readily built or a ready system, but to be able to have a one which is more suitable to our own system, which can be integrated to our own system. And I believe we are on the right track at the moment. But I want to state that we should be accelerating this process a bit more. Now I don't want to keep it long, and now I will give Mr. Refik Tiryaki the floor. He is head of group of the Electricity Market Department, comes from the Republic of Turkey Energy Market Regulatory Authority. He has a short presentation. The floor is yours, sir.
Şimdi Sayın Başkan, değerli
Esteemed participants, speakers, and esteemed chair, I would like to salute you all in the name of my association authority and in my own name. First, I would like to thank the organizers of this nice event, which enables us to come together with all the sector shareholders. Well, it might be a long presentation, but I'll try to keep it as short as possible. I would like to give you some short, brief information about the 2015 applications and about our principles, about some data and history, and then pre-license applications, then license applications, and then what happens, and the assessment process of it. And then I will continue. Well, let's start. Is the authority, we try to make the process predictable. As our moderator said, we learned a lot from the history, both as public and private sector. So, in the future processes, there should be transparency, trustworthiness, and
öngörüyoruz.
and economy. We are planning to make some new assessments and amendments in the legislation, and we will try to make all the changes accessible through the internet as much as possible. Well, this trustworthiness, this procedure economy, actually, what is this, if you ask me? Here the aim is to find the best way which has the least costs. Well, in 2015 applications, you know that there is a preparation process which takes like 1.5 years at least, and then the following processes will show that this preparation works itself. Well, at the moment we are trying to form a strategy and a system which is going to operate in the best way. Well, here installed power, you can see the figures of the installed power. Well, at the moment we are quite behind the aimed schedule, aimed target actually. But the together with the figures on the screen, as you can see, these 20,000 megawatt. There are some reports stating that we have a potential of 20,000 megawatt capacity, but what we should do here is to be able to evaluate them in detail together with the public and private sector. Well, the total installed power, when we look at the numbers of companies in terms of the months, in 2011 January, you can see the most of it, and in 2012, in the first quarter of it, you see the figures on the screen as well. In 2011 and 12, the fact that the applications are licensed actually caused it to be this process to be a bit late, but we know that we've learned a lot from the past, and in the next process, in this period, we are planning to have periods for license application and then to give the license in more fast way, because for us, what is important that to reach the 20,000 megawatt, because Turkey values the fact that to reach our own sources. Well, the WPP legislation, generally, we know all about it. In 2002, for example, first we had our pre-license and so on. Well, I'm skipping some of the slides because I want to keep short. Well, in 2015, there is a process where about the WPP applications. At the moment, we are in the third quarter of these measurements in terms of pre-license applications. You know, they are done in April. At the moment, we are trying to follow them in a fast way. Well, pre-license, you know, it came with a law numbered 6,000 and so on. The previous law was a bit different, and it has two strict rules. But together with this law number 6,446, now the situation is better. In this pre-license application, there are too many documents: the information form, the plant place project, and so on. These are among the required documents. And the fact that measurements are being conducted in a really late stage, we try to change this because due to the law, due to the regulation, now it is expected, and it is a rule that the measurements are done before the license applications and so on. This is our expectation. Well, the assessment process of the pre-license, what is important here is there are two important points in this procedure. The fact that the missing documents are done, and apart from that, we will require a registered email address. We will require the companies, applying companies, to have a registered and valid email address.
için bu
Well, these registered email addresses are actually important in terms of the notifications being sent, and so that the communication between the companies and the public sector and the private sector would be fast and better. And actually, if it is a missing part, that may ruin all the process if you don't have a registered valid email address. Then once the applications are done, then the evaluation decision making comes, then the applications are announced. Well, the aim here in the new process is to be able to state all the missing or not working good parts and to amend them at the early stages. TWEC, YEGM, these are among our important shareholders in that process. As I stated before, this is not a solely process in the hands of the APDK. Everyone has their own shares here. And we have our solution partners. We are planning to conduct this process together with them, and now I would like to thank them again here to their contributions, because thanks to their partnership, we can accelerate this process, and hopefully we will have a better partnership and relationship together with them. In 2018, you know, the electricity market law launched a new calendar which says that in 2013, November 2013, March 2014, the measurement masts are going to be built. Then March 15, 2013, the measurement process will be initiated. Then March 15, 2015, the measurement will be completed and the stage will go on. You know, the pre-license was created thanks to the law number 6446 and thanks to a force majeure. Then the process was formed in pre-license with these. Apart from force majeures, the process of pre-license cannot exceed 24 months. Well, together with the sector, we are planning to implement and to interpret the law in the best way so that our country can benefit from it most. But as I said, the force majeure interpretation of the law authorities will be more strict, will be more clear, and so that the framework of this force majeure will be formed in a better way in the following years. So I believe that might create serious problems for the sector in the future. So what I advise you is to plan your process in the best way and to try to follow that process. Well, the pre-license liabilities, they are explained one by one, but I won't touch them all. We are aware that there are some complaints about
4 ay ve 36 ay tabii ona bağlı olarak
there are some complaints about some restrictions in terms of the time period, but the best way here, in my opinion, is maybe to take all necessary precautions so that you can comply with this time period. Well, the end of this pre-license process ends up with granting a license. Once the liabilities, the obligations are done, and once the pre-license, there's an application done within the pre-license process, and when all the license specifications or requirements are done, then license can be granted. And the license granted in later process initiates the building process, actually. In this pre-license term, maybe do some works related to construction. Well, actually, we don't recommend it much to do some construction works in the pre-license stage. Well, the reference building, the time period is based on reference construction times. Well, Mr. Ahmet, I would like to thank him, who had great contribution to this reference time framework of the construction period. Well, now I would like to make some reminding points. We actually see this as a partnership. We are not just a public institution. We want to have a partnership together with all other shareholders. I mean, collaboration is of great importance. This registered email address, I touched upon that, was important. And then coordination is really important. And I believe once all these steps are done all together, that whole sector will have a fruitful result. Well, now I would like to introduce you my team, my co-workers who have been together with me, who has done so many nice things so far, who gave themselves to that whole process. And now I am finishing my presentation. Thank you for listening.
Refik Bey'e biz de teşekkür ediyoruz.
We would like to thank Mr. Latif again. Well, Mr. Refik, well, I would ask you to have your questions at the end of the all presentations. Once everything is presented and everything is spoken, then we can. Well, our next speaker will be Ms. Sezen from IRC.
Merhaba.
Hello everyone, welcome again. I'm coming from Aries Energy. I'm a shareholder of the company and the project manager. I would like to introduce our company first of all, for the ones who don't know us. We were established, we have been a part in WPP projects since 2006. And one of our investors has 500 megawatts. And the projects we get involved in is more than 3,500. And this is actually more than the installed wind power of Turkey. Well, what I want to touch upon in my presentation is the experiences we had while we were getting involved in the projects, including these 3,500 megawatts of energy. Now I would like to talk about a few things that happened. I put it in 3 periods. One is the project development processes. It covers until the 1st of November 2007. In this process, it wasn't a good process of evaluations of pre-license and blah blah, because we didn't have a legislation that forced us in this area. And after the 1st of November 2007, we had this new arrangement about the application process. So these were what we did, only what we did for getting an application. So this is just a file with the information of the company and the natural people, and then a map. However, starting from the 1st November 2007, with the decisions of the board and some regulations, there were some other obligatory documents. However, our infrastructure, our basic documents were not really changing. I also remember application forms involving having some maps signed with like handwriting. So it was that kind of a process. However, after the change, the main amendments in 2003, we had pre-license. The pre-license was a definition of the process before the construction, but this became a prerequisite before the license, and we had a limited time, so the meaning of pre-license changed for us. And we also added measurements and the evaluation of the measurements before the pre-license. And while choosing the land for wind turbines, we had to prove the existence of the wind. So if you want to develop a wind power plant project, you have to prove that the wind exists there. It was considered that this would decrease the number of applications. However, when we look at the facts, we can see that the number of the applications actually increased. For the measurement works and regarding notifications, there were some changes, and we had really restricted time. And we just tried to find the easiest places, easiest lands to have the measurement masts. So we built our measurement masts in not actually good areas, just the most convenient areas we picked. We are making measurements based on the procedures, and we are giving the measurements to the meteorology, the Directorate of Meteorology. However, the measurements that we have actually don't represent our actual fields, so it won't be enough. And with some of the investors, we also built some measurement masts in the right points in the field, but I think it is not sufficient enough. Our biggest challenge here is, after the declaration of power plant capacities, the limitations of the period. We think we don't have enough time to have a permit to build a measurement mast. So we couldn't get the permit. We didn't have the time to have the permit. So we just found a land belonging to, it's a personal land, and we just built our measurement masts, which don't represent our real field. This is a list that we had to do, the criteria. There were some companies that did all of that, and some others developed their project based on just the existence of the wind. And these are the things that we have to accomplish after having the pre-license in 24 months. But we have to have a positive result from every of these points. When we have a negative result for one turbine, we won't have enough time to go back and to get the necessary permits. It is not possible to accomplish all this in this period of time. One of the most important thing is the mining permits. This is one of the most challenging things we had, and airports, civil airports, and the distance, the proximity to airports, military airports, and the meteorology radars, and the regulations having the restrictions about the forest, natural protection zones, some national parks, natural parks, etc., bird migration routes, EIA reports, tourism zones, industrial zones, etc. Does this land have a construction plan? What about its conditions? Is it available? Is it suitable to build a WPP? The property, blah blah. These will all affect your project financement. It will change your project costs. And we also have some additional costs that we have to pay regarding the trees and forest issues. While we are doing this, these actually give us important data for our roadmap to create our finance. Some topographic conditions, for example, we built our mast. We have 8.5 meter in we have a really good measurements. However, the topography of the land is really not suitable for construction. So we also have to evaluate all of that. We get opinions of 32 institutions to have the approval, and those institutions have some we have to know if they have some investment plans in the lands it's considered, because if they are going to construct a pipeline, they won't let us to build power plants. And we also have to be considered about the overlapping issues with other projects. While we are doing all of this is not obligatory. All of them are not obligatory. However, we are trying to take all of them into consideration in order to have more predictability about our process after the pre-license. Well, this is actually not enough. We have legislations defining the process until the pre-license. It covers two and a half years. For example, before 2.5 years, maybe this land didn't have anything about mining. However, after you accomplish everything until the pre-license, you'll learn that there's a coal reserve underneath, and you have to throw away all your efforts because there's nothing you can do about it. So this process is too long, and in this process, some other things can come up that prevent your project. I'm actually a city planner. While you are investing, the most important criteria is the location, to invest in the right location. So the long list I talked about in the last slide, now we go to the institutions, necessary institutions. We go to them and we ask, can you give us some advice on this land? And they actually help us very much. They even give us written information. I think there must be an application criteria when you are applying for pre-license. You should be able to prove the feasibility of this project. So you shouldn't develop a project that you actually can't build. It doesn't have any, it doesn't help to the aims of Turkey, actually. That's why after the tenders of 2007 applications, 3,300 megawatts of the projects came into realizations. We didn't realize, we didn't actually evaluate the feasibility of the project. We just evaluated the existence of the wind in the applications. I wish it was enough to prove that wind exists. However, in the process, until the construction starts, the permission processes need to be managed in a wise manner, and the only way to prevent this unnecessary loss in this process, we need to have a criteria to prove this location is suitable before the pre-license process. And you have to prove also, of course, the wind, existence of the wind. But as I mentioned before, the wrong measurements on the wrong locations just to complete the procedures don't give us the right measurements. And after having pre-measurement, in many projects, you have to build other measurement masts and make more micro sightings. And they also can't start doing the measurements right away after having the pre-license, because they have to build extra measurement masts because the masts they use were not in their site. And you also have to have an analysis, energy analysis report. And as I mentioned before, you might have a good capacity of wind power, but you might not have the good topography of the land. For example, you have a target in your mind. You want to create 20 megawatts, but your site enables you to produce only 10 megawatts. So this needs to be specified. The analysis should be in your hand, showing how much productivity you can have. And the fourth important thing is the finance. And 99% of this financing is our own capital and also bank loans. We have to make the plans how to pay and how to get this capital that we need. We need to analyze as a company if we are able to afford this project, because until then all the infrastructure will be ready, energy analysis reports we have them, and we will have the measurements and everything. So when the bankers also look at the situation, they can see if the project gets the permit, I can give support to this project. We can give loans. So it will be more clear also for banks. And we also have a fraud that we need to fight. We need to eliminate the fraud investors. These are just my suggestions, and I hope my suggestions will be taken into consideration by the authorities. Thank you very much.
Sezen Hanım'a
Thank you very much, Ms. Sezen, for giving us this information about project development process and sharing her experiences in this area. And the suggestions are also very important to us. I took notes, and I I'm sure other related people also took their notes about the suggestions. Really, the process starting from the 1st of November 2007, when we think about all the challenges, everybody's advice has a great importance for us to improve the process. That's why I would like to thank you very much. And now I would like to give the floor to Mr. Sebahattin Öz from, he's the head of department in the Renewable Energy General Directorate.
Teşekkür ederim.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I would like to salute you all in my and in the name of my institution. First of all, I would like to thank TWEC management and everyone involved in the process for such a nice event. Well, I won't have a presentation. I will have a speech based on some notes from the previous speeches. Well, in the old speeches, what was highlighted, the fact that with our experience in 2007, we learned a lot. Well, actually, there's a process for the solar energy applications. We have our own experiences, and actually, as the process is not so different, we can make use of our past lessons. At the moment, we have project storage, to which applications were done, and the operating plans are in total around 100,000 megawatts. In Turkey, which had a lower installed capacity at the moment, has 3,500 installed power at the moment, and this is a plus point for us. This figure is a plus point for us. Well, of course, we have our pros and cons in that process. And the private and public sector learned a lot from that process. And maybe there might be a long period until all these learned lessons are reflected in the legislation or the related regulations, but we will have that. Well, the main topic of this session, in my opinion, which triggered me a lot, is what have been done and what can be done for this 3,000 megawatt new WPP applications in Turkey. In 2015, what we know or what we can predict is based on the measurements in 2,400 points, the entrepreneurs in the sector are conducting measurements, and all these measurements are done for the April 2015 pre-license application. We are expecting to have at the end of the April to have 1,500 applications. But after that, I have too many question marks related to the process. What we are going to do, what kind of problems we will have after the applications. Well, what we can do to overcome these handicaps. We are making brainstorming and studies for that together with the related ministries, because before that, in the previous stages, we, as I said, learned from the experiences, and together with the experiences from the solar energy power plant, we are trying to create solutions to the possible handicaps. Well, together public sector, together with the private sector, what we claim is that the process gets longer as much as the number of the partners related involved are increasing. The speaker before me stated that too. What makes the process longer is about the related permits that the companies are trying to get from the related institutions. Well, that is a fact, okay? We can't make this process shorter, but there are some problems which can be solved within the institutions or within the authorities themselves. Well, you know, some of the institutions create abundance of legislation, and due to that, then the investors' money and the effort they put in that process increases more and more. I mean, they have to spend more effort and investment on that. When we think about the wind power, we compare the measurement process of it with the solar energy, there is a difference. In my opinion, this measurement, obligatory measurement point is nonsense, because you have to do this for the wind energy. But when you have to do is a discussable point. Ms. Cezanne stated that quite good when we put that measurement obligation. We were not able to then calculate other steps in a better way. But due to these obligations, in order to complete that measurement process in a short period of time, like 1 year, then the companies feel themselves as if they have to make these measurements in non-related fields, areas, and then all the results would create some negative aspects like the cancellation of the process or other things. Well, what can be done? They can create a plant site which is larger and greater to integrate these other related things. In 2015, in order to evaluate fastly the 2015 applications, the ministry will work on that. How can we accelerate the evaluation? In terms of the permit, is the Ministry of Energy, both from the sector itself and from the institutions granting the permit, there is a demand to have a coordination, and we have some new steps related to this coordination, which we hope to finish until 2015 evaluation stage. Apart from energy sector, well, the legislations created apart from this energy sector can create some problems for us. Some applications, some necessary applications may prolong the process, can make it hard for us. For example, the experience we had with the forestry lands. Well, in every regulation, we need to be informed, and for each legislation before they are issued, we agreed on the informing ministry itself, and after its authorization to issue this new legislation? Well, then we worked on how we can accelerate this process. It is an ongoing process at the moment. Before having the technical interaction process, first it should be decided whether it is it's necessary or not. In the previous presentation, and there were so many nice points, as I said, the measurement obligation there should be a measurement obligation, okay, at the beginning of the application. That should be at the beginning of the application. Well, there are two options in my opinion. Either you are going to make the process quite easy without demanding so many complicated things, or together with the measurement, in terms of site choices, you are going to make applications depending on that plant field data and other data related to the wind power energy. You are going to either make the process, as I said, easier, quite simple, or you are going to demand everything at a very early stage at the beginning. Well, okay, you might have a measurement at a perfect place, but as long as the field, the plant site you are going to have doesn't have these figures of the measurement, that measurement you do is pointless. Well, and related to that process, maybe there might be some permit stages too. Well, we have had an. Let's imagine there is an applicant who states, okay, in the previous license we had this certain megawatt figures, and now we have these figures and so on. This is not healthy. There are all the steps, related steps in the new legislation and regulation shall be conducted, and after that you can regard this as a success. Well, that was all I want to state. Thank you. We thank Mr. Sebahattin. Now we will have our last speaker from Resan Atelier, Mr. Ayhan. You can either speak here or on the chart.
Selamlıyorum.
Thank you very much, my esteemed moderator. I salute everybody. In your opening speech, depending on your experiences, you depicted a more positive picture for us. Of course, your position, it was in line with your position. It was to comfort everyone, to comfort the sector. We needed to see the positive picture. However, the real situation of the sector is not actually that positive. After the syndrome that happened in 2007, yes, we got used to it and we improved a little bit, but the uncertainties are very at a higher level, and the sector does not feel positive, and I can't see the picture as positive as you do. Unfortunately, I first wanted to state this. We actually make a wrong start. I think Ms. Sezen summarized it very well. In the areas we are trying to construct a measurement mast because of the permissions issues in the forest and blah blah, we have to construct our measurement masts, erect our masts in private properties. We rent private properties and just construct our measurement masts, and this is a wrong start. There is a saying in Germany, start like a Turk or finish like a German. But the right thing is start like a German and finish like a Turk. We are trying to start with the Turkish mentality and we want the results of German mentality, but this is not possible. And we also have challenges in the sector, and these need to be addressed because we lost enough time, I think. And we need to reach up to a certain level. Yes, 3,300 megawatts might look good, but when we look at our potential, we should have been at a higher point. Yes, the problem is we are given license, we are licensed, and then we have to talk to 35 institutions. Some of the institutions still see themselves like a partner of the project, and the costs increased a lot. The feasibilities of the projects are damaged, and the problems are going on. And this is caused by both public sector and both by us, private sector. However, the problems caused by the public sector need to be addressed first because they are setting our roadmap. Having a license does not mean that you will apply your project. However, to get the license, we have to make many considerable amount of efforts. And as an investor, what I think is, after having a license, I don't want to accept that I won't have permit from the Ministry of Forest Affairs or from the military. You are, as a very dignified institution, you declare the capacity based on the region. And first you need to, it is possible to check if it is a prohibited military zone or if it is a forest land. It is possible to make research about the sites. So it could be made by different institutions, by TWEC or the General Directorate of Renewable Energy, etc. Whoever does it. You need to predict this challenges, and if you know them, you don't declare these regions as appropriate for wind power, so we won't apply for those sites. So we don't lose time first getting a pre-license for a site, but then learning that it belongs to a military zone or whatever, so you can't build. So we wouldn't lose that much time. I'm actually very appreciated by the sector, and we tried to cooperate with the General Directorate of Renewable Energy instead of those 35 institutions, but it's actually not possible. There is a lack of dialogue and lack of communication, lack of coordination between different institutions. We need to find a way to centralize this, to centralize it to one institution, or giving a higher authority to one institution so that the communication between all the other institutions will be easier through a central institution. That would help the sector, I think. And I said having a license does not mean that you will realize your project. However, having a license, having an operating license does not mean to put your plant into operation. A company has been operating his plant for 2 years, but with a court decision, it was shut down after 2 years of operation. This is also possible. And some of the permits given in the permission processes, they have conditions. So as long as it has an effect on the radar, I will inquire you to stop the turbine. Or in the migration period of certain kinds of bird, you have to stop your operations. And this creates a problem regarding the financement. So the bank, for example, you want a loan from the bank, but the bank says like how many months will you work? When will the birds come? When will you affect the radar? So I give you the interest, not this rate, but this rate. But I can't give you loan because of all those uncertain things. So yes, we made a certain amount of improvement. We have a certain level of experience, but I would like to stress the problems are going on. The uncertainties put us down. And many of the investors, some of them are here present with us, they are even thinking about leaving the sector because the permission processes are very long and there's no information and about the date when those problems will come to an end. So they will say, why should I bother to invest in this sector? I go invest to another sector, or I just keep my money in the bank. Why would I take this risk? All these uncertainties cause this. The solar applications became really complicated. So it should have come to a result last year. Everybody made their investments. They increased the number of their staff. They supplied some equipment for their future projects. However, the process had to have an end last year, but it's still going on, and it's not certain when it will come to an end. And it is not certain how the project will be evaluated. Will we have an additional period, or won't we have it, and how long will it be if we have? So even though this is problematic, I would say even the problematic ones should go into the tender, and we will see who will win, who will lose. So this process will has to come to an end. There are many investments that want to come to Turkey, that want to produce solar panels, and this delays caused many problems because it prevented them coming into the sector last year. Yeah, we just like I said, we have the problems about the public sector going on, but we also acknowledge our own mistakes too as a private sector. We are in a very meaningless competition. Nowhere in the world there isn't a system like ours. So if you want to build a conventional power plant, you can get a license for nuclear power, for natural gas, and thermic plants. But for us, the renewable energy is the most needed type of energy, but we have to be in competition. This is meaningless, but of course the public says, yes, we had to do it because otherwise you will fight over who will do what. So this is what we need. Renewable energy is what we need, and there is a meaningless competition and meaningless requirements about this area. And because of this competition, some projects are carried out in a wrong way or not feasible. Wrong measurements now started to be exposed. Many plants started to operate, but what we hear, the considerable amount of the plants are not able to reimburse their own investments, and then we have to pay contribution margins. So let alone paying the contribution margins, some of the plants can't afford themselves. So it is critical. It's really important to plan this ahead. And about the environment is also important. In Manisa, the thermic plant will be built, and the private land became public, and they cut down the trees, 100 or 200 years old trees. They cut down them, and they didn't even wait for another harvest period so that some added value can be made. So this is related to the people, to the environment. For example, I visited a plant a few weeks ago. The proximity of the turbine to the residential area is 27 meters. Of course, people complain. We create noise and other risks, but I mean, may God forbid, but if this turbine is pulled down or just falls down, what will happen? It will damage people's property, and it will harm people's lives. We didn't ask those people while we were constructing that turbine there, so we have to take the human factor and the environment into consideration. I don't want to talk very long. To me, the situation does not look very positive. So this is my idea. Thank you very much.
Ayhan Bey'e teşekkür ediyoruz.
We thank Mr. Ayhan for his speech. Well, esteemed participants, I see you all take notes down, but at the moment, I would like to give some headlines of the 4 speeches done so far because they were so important. Well, at the very beginning of this, as a person at the head of this situation, I would like to inform you now. The installed power now 68,230 megawatt installed power at the moment, and the share of it is 3,483 share, which is the general installed power was that, and the wind share in the general installed power is 3,483. Well, we came to that step all together with the public sector and the private sector and NGOs. And we can't accept the fact that the ship itself is sinking. We have to make that ship to reach its destination all together. We have to, everyone should do their own responsibilities. Yes, we had some negative things. We had some problems, but even we had even some failures. But what we should do is to dig into these root reasons and to find a solution. Personally, I believe, together with the NGOs, the public and the private sector, we all should believe in that, and we all should work together in a cooperation, and we should try to overcome these handicaps, overcome these problems. Well, things that you value at the beginning, things which are important for Turkey at the beginning, trying to draw the attention of others to these facts requires a long time. things that you detailedly think about and then you start your journey based on them, then might create some problems as we've experienced. There, the actors, apart from this electricity sector itself, have great impact, like the military itself, the Ministry of Forestry and Water Affairs, and so on. They all, other actors as well, have impact on the process. But I believe all the investors are aware of that. And actually, everyone tries to reach something positive. No one is going to, make a barrier in front of themselves. Everyone tries to open their path. Well, I believe without losing our faith, without losing our hope about wind energy, I believe the foreign investors still, the fact that foreign investors still have a willingness to make investment into Turkey is a hopeful thing for us. Well, yes. We are reaching at a certain stage, even with some pros and cons, even with some problems and difficulties. But we reached that. But here, the great problem, actually, the main problem is the financing. Well, to summarize again, from all these speeches done in that session, what I can say is to carry the hope in the wind energy and not to be pessimist. Well, the lines from the presentations, Mr. Refik talked about the procedure economy, the other points, some certain things which can be a solution to the problems in the sector, which can pave the way for new capacities, which can be a good contribution. Well, this procedure economy, which is a new term in my opinion, is really important in my term, which this procedure economy means to reach the target in the most economic way. I think that term, this method would be something good. And another thing Mr. Refik talked about, the thing about the registered email address. He talked about that in his presentation, and actually it is an important point in my opinion, which can make the whole process easier, the collaboration and connection, interaction easier in my opinion. The periodic calendar, which was a bit ruined in the past times, he said that it will be implemented in a better way in the future stages. Well, now we had our 5-year capacity declaration, and now it's time for 2018. The capacity declaration, the application process, and everything will be followed up. The pre-license liabilities, obligations, he talked about that too. He said it is important to actualize this process, pre-license process, in the specified period of time. Well, actually, it's a question whether everything can be done in a 24-month period. But, you know, the legislation is at the moment like that, 24 months plus 2 months. Well, shortly, together with this KAP, which means KAP, which means registered email address, he highlighted that the process will be easier and better. Ms. Sezen talked about the problems in the project implementation process. Well, it's a big problem actually, yes. Maybe when we look at the companies which has the biggest capacities in Turkey now, having 475 megawatts and so on. Well, okay, their problems might be hard, but in terms of actualizing the target and in terms of learning from experience, this is something good. Well, due to some permissions from the Ministry of Forestry and so on, not being able to complete the process within the specified period of time, and her other specifications she talked about, the problems with the measurement masts, the problems that we have with the military permissions or these natural protected areas or other things that she touched upon so far, actually made me think that the process itself is a really tough one. I'm telling this from the perspective of a person who is not within that, inside that process. Well, then there were four important conditions that were touched upon, as Ms. Selahattin talked about them too. The key point here is the field, is choosing the field, the area of the plant. The most important and the key thing is that other problems or other procedures have problems, but that can be minimized. And I hope to have positive results in the future. Mr. Salatin, when he talked in his speech, he summarized the fact that he stated we should learn lessons from the problems and from the experience is really important. Okay, we had some negative experiences, but let's not have them in the future, okay? Personally, and for speaking in the name of the sector and the public sector itself, let's not have these problems in the future. Well, hopefully, till the end of April 2015, we are going to receive the applications. Well, Mr. Sabahattin, in his speech, the most important headline was the fact, well, he mentioned that there are some works related to a fast assessment of the applications, and he said that would create a great contribution. I agree with him. Together with coordination, I believe we can minimize these time loss. Well, he also suggested two ways. Either you will make the process quite simply, you will not demand a pre-license, or either you will create a solution for everything at the right beginning. Well, this pre-license, how suitable it is to our legislation and to our people, to Turkish people, I'm not quite sure about it. Yeah, Mr. Ayhan, in his speech, he said starting like a Turk and finishing like a German, or starting like a German, finishing like a Turk. And he said that we generally prefer to start like a Turk and then to expect a result like a German. But you know, in Turkey, generally, we erect the masts in the wrong place, and then we try to amend all this process, and we try to make everything perfect. That was from his speech. And before capacity declaration, there might be problems to specify places where you can declare the capacity, or not to have investments in vain. Well, I agree with them, but this demands a great coordination. Well, we have some ethics in terms of evaluating whether this wind power plant, may be integrated to the electricity grid, and it can have positive effects on the capacity and the gained electricity. Well, okay, you declare the capacity in terms of electricity, but in previous terms, this electrical capacity was based on substations. You know, okay, we agree that it is a bit hard to have a capacity declaration based on substations. At the moment, we changed that, and we have a regional-based capacity declaration. So when you implement this, the regional-based capacity declaration, then the process starts to be a bit easier. Apart from that, okay, we had some problems with the solar energy as well, but as one of our speakers stated before, some problems or the negative experiences or even maybe positive experiences in a specific sector may be a model or an example for the other sectors. So we should see everything and try to utilize all these experiences as much as possible. We had a competition. We are going to have a competition for 50 megawatt. Sorry, we had a competition based on 50 megawatt. We had two competitors. One of them was made his application for 15 megawatts. Other one made his application for 30 megawatt. And the figures, the offers, or the contribution margins, the fees they offered were shocking for me because they were too low. And at the end of the competition, I complained about that to the related partners, and I said, didn't you have any kind of coordination among yourselves? And the answer I got was everyone was expecting the other partner to come to his place and to talk about that. That was nonsense. Well, the ministry itself doesn't have a kind of income expectation from these competitions based on contribution margins. Well, these monies coming within the year itself do not have any contribution to the TWEC, the Turkish Electricity Transmission Company. At the end, all the figures are calculated, and we look at the total turnover. Well, why you make these competitions then? Well, competitions are procedures to choose among the best ones, because there is no specific criteria for these contribution margins. In the previous years, we discussed this issue with the other ministries or other institutions about what kind of a contribution margin or situation there should be. But personally, in my opinion, the money offered in the competitions should have been the least ones in the second position. other things should have been done, but at the moment it's a bit late. We started this, we are doing this, but what is important here is to is not to make a competition which would make the payback of the investment a tough one, but there should be a path, there should be a competition which would enable a easier path to the investors. Well, we experienced that in a previous competition. Imagine that an investor has to pay like 5 or 6,000 Turkish liras as a contribution margin, and then how he is going to make other investments. This is a question mark. This is something hard. Well, that's the summary, the briefing of the whole session so far. Well, if you have any questions, if you want to make any contribution, or if you want to state something, you are more than welcomed. Well, in the speeches, since yesterday's, they say that the targeted megawatt capacity is really hard, and I believe that once the government itself gives up its wish to make profit from this process, then I think we are going to gain more. There is no need for a competition, actually. Anyone who has money can prepare their own projects, and then they can initiate their process. Well, I don't find this competition quite as something good. It's not useless. Why you are insisting on this competition thing that much? Mr. Recep, well, we started the speech that there is no need for a competition, okay? But when you recall the 2007, then you will understand and remember why we have this competition. Well, for a specific capacity, let's make a round calculation. There was an application roundly about 78,000 megawatt. When we assessed this application, the pattern we had was so weird. It was, I mean, everything was so different. Trying to pick the right one among all these applications in total was a hard process. Well, I think this competition stage makes it a bit better, makes the situation a bit better. But the government itself, please let me state that the government itself doesn't have any money expectation, doesn't have any income expectation of that competition. This is just a criteria to choose among the applications. That's it. And this competition stage was initiated, was created together with the works done by the related ministry and the related institutions, together with you, with the private sector as well. So at the moment, okay, we are at that stage. We have a competition process which might not be so fruitful, but as long as you see the wrong parts of it and you complain and you make it in the right way, I believe out of experiences, amendments can be done. Well, isn't it a bad thing for all these people who make application with a hope to get a license and so on, which are good and which give efforts and which spend money on that process. Isn't it a bit nonsense for them not to be chosen? Like there are 1,500 applicants, let's say, and then only a few of them are chosen. Uh, Well, okay, I understand you, but when people speak like that, it sounds as if the a part of the related partners, like the private sector or the public sector, did something wrong, and now at the moment, this is the reason why we are at that stage. Well, let's accept that everyone in this process, everyone, even the banks, everyone had a mistake. We all did mistakes here. We were all inside this process. We did our mistakes. We had some bad experiences and so on, and we reached that level. But this doesn't mean that we are going to have problems in the future or we are going to make mistakes in the future. From the next procedure, I believe that we will be in a better position and we will make less mistakes. Because I try to listen to you and I understand that this license permitting process is quite hard for you, and I do take your complaints into consideration. Well, I believe we should separate between two important points. If you are going to make a political discussion, yes, we can make a discussion about that. By the way, I'm speaking related to your question, sir. We can make political discussions, yes, but I believe that this competition thing is not an issue of discussion because we had our discussions in the past, and now trying to have discussions again is kind of waste of time, in my opinion. Okay, I do respect your comments and criticism. I believe they are important and your recommendations are of importance again, but at the moment, it is not the time and the place to make this discussion about the competition. Well, whether it was necessary or not to have a competition, I don't want to state my opinion about that. Okay, but the most important thing, right from the beginning of the session, everyone highlighted that problem, that coordination, the permitting process, this licensing process, and so on, they are important and tough issues. Yes, we will have the results in time. We will see what kind of effects all these will have in the future, but all of them are political preferences, in my opinion, and these political preferences are done by the ministries and the National Assembly of Turkey. And frankly speaking, I believe that there should be a competition. By competition, we state contest. There is a contest between applicants. Well, what about you? Do you want to give a few remarks? Well, in a competitive environment, this contest, this implemented contest, is the only solution at the moment, is the only method that can be done. But the fact that each year applications can be the applications can be obtained each year, maybe they can change it and make it in short intervals, and after that amendment, maybe it would not be a necessity to have a contest.
İyi günler. Zeki.
Hello, my name is Zeki Eriş, General Director of Polat Energy. Well, in terms of this contest, competition, or tender thing, this thing, I believe that we need to discuss this. You're right. There's no need for competition or tender. Our capital is restricted. So 1.1 million euro is what we spent. There are some people who are trying to build a plant with $700, and we have a restricted capital. And when we are going into this contest, when we can't have the permits, then we try to buy the licenses in another way. So I want to thank Refik Bey and Sezen Hanım. And these are really nice representations. We can have a workshop program with those. But after these things, we are trying to buy some projects, like a junk projects, and we try to implement them. Like we bought a licensed project in 2004, and we could start operation in 2010. So we have to wait 6 years, 7 years, 10 years for the implementations of the projects, and we have um, restricted capital. So I was going to make 1 megawatts, but now I will have half megawatts because of the restriction of my capital. So if we can force people to prepare a proper file for application, we won't need that kind of competition. So if there is an application for the same site, more than one applications for one site, then you will have competition or tender. For example, you have built 1,500 turbines and a hill parallel to the wind, and then you find 10-meter for the wind power, and if you don't have the energy analyzed, then the person will say, oh, this is a treasure. But you can't put a turbine on a parallel hill, so how will he see it? He will spend 3,000 euros, and then he will see. Let's go back to 2007. Why did you do that? You changed the measurement legislation, like Sezen Hanım said, a map, just take a pen, just give the numbers, give the names of the villages, and then you get the um, license. So we started this way. So we put 1,500 of measurement masts, and then you will have many, many, many applications. And after having the file, you won't have right questions. Like after 2 years, after 36 months, they will come. Yes, I'm here now. I'm waiting from the military the permit, and then now I'm waiting this permit from blah blah. Then he will say, I need my time to be extended. Then you can't reject it. So it will go on and on and on. So Refik Bey and Sabahattin Bey, you said nice things. You said we are working on it. We are gonna develop this, and we are gonna improve this. And Sezen Hanım's presentation actually shows the experience, as we also made a great investment in Turkey. These things are really need to be taken into consideration. In the April, before the applications, let's come together. Let's stay 1 week together, and let's have those presentations from this TWEC conference. What did we do? We see our mistakes, we are sad, but then we don't correct our mistakes. Please take those presentations. You don't have to be in a rush. You can say, let's not make this on April. We will have it on October, and then we will set a better way of application. Our capital shouldn't be wasted. So we will spend this money, but the return of this money is also certain. The banks actually make their calculations and they say you will earn this much, and then we talk about interests and interest lobby. And with these methods, we are serving to interest lobby. We increase the interests, and we are wasting the capital of this country, and this country is paying money for interests. So when I'm going to produce 1 megawatt with 300,000 euros, but now I spend 600,000 euros for the same amount of energy, and this money is earned not very easy. And then gas plants, let's say, they are made in a very short time. In 1 year, they are implemented. Its source is from the foreign source. It's really great. But now we are trying to use the resources of our own countries. We are paying money for the gas. How do we do that? We pay interest. We get in debt. Actually, we have to use our own resources, and it's made hard for us to use our own resources. You say it in every platform. We want to make use of our own resources, but we have to do it in until 2023. But with these things and with these problems, we can't do it till that time. Yes, thank you very much. I agree some of the criticisms of Zeki Bey. I don't find them meaningless. I think this is a very sincere explanation of their problems. If you let me, I will tell you some funny story. A husband went to a village as an imam, as a jami, the mosque, and then he took someone, and he is dirty, and he invited someone, he doesn't know how to make the cleaning process before the prayer, and then the other one doesn't know how to pray, and then the imam accomplished, he could attract more people to the mosque, and afterwards a new imam was assigned, and for the new imam, the older one said, the mosque is dirty, the people are dirty, they don't know how to do the prayer, it's very problematic, there are problems. But don't forget, I took them to the mosque, I attracted them to the mosque, and now you will show them how to pray. So with those experiences, the ones who handed the assignment to me told me, I gathered these people to the mosque, but now you will teach them how to pray. So after this criticism, yes, the criticisms, when they are evaluated based on the principles, the meanings can change. Like everything should be made by the state beforehand. They would detect the sites, made the energy analysis, look at their productivities and blah blah. So if everything should be done by the statements, so when everything were evaluated by the bureaucrats and by the states in the past, was it better? The Republic of Turkey in 2001 adopted a new policy, a new system, predictable, transparent, having the rule of law regarding the private property rights, and the law, the rule of law was important. I actually talked about the trustworthiness of the justice and the predictability, the transparency. Yes, we are working. You will see the results, the concrete results in the near future. In the applications of the applications in April, we are taking some measurements. It was the first week of my office. Regarding the solar powers, we deleted all the applications for the sites which were not feasible. So we are criticized. They say, "Oh, let them to go into the contest, let them to go to the tender, let them to get the pre-license, and then after 2 years, they won't be able to build the plants, and they will come and say that we have these problems." No, we didn't want it. We wanted to have predictable and feasible and implementable projects. We are pulling ourselves together. We are changing our regulations, legislations. We are changing our practices, and if we can do, we are trying to prepare our guidelines, and we are also expecting the same things from them, like the joke I told you. So now we want also your steps regarding to learn how to pray. That's what I can say about this. Thank you very much, Mr. Refik. What we should conduct from this is actually in the Congress and symposiums in the past, the notes from them are not wasted. Just like EPDK, EPDK started to change some regulations, like Refik Bey told us. We will see the results in April, and he said that they implemented the first change in solar applications, and then there will be some regulations about this 3,300 megawatts, and we will see the results very soon. And I believe this improvement will go further, step by step, maybe gradually, but there is still hope. Please, Can Mütik from Çelik Holding. I have a question about the results. The work Zeki Bey mentioned, if it can be applied, it would be really beneficial for the whole sector. But based on these legislations and rules, the current ones, we all experienced in the past, we all know these contests and tenders, we know the numbers were high, and if the same things happen, and if some companies want to quit, their guarantee will be wasted. But at the same time, the gap they caused, can they be defined to other, opened to use of the other investments? Because in the past, the most successful ones were given the rights and authorities, and they have the results, but no one, we couldn't follow what happened. I don't know how it developed, but we are talking about 36 months. In pre-license, it is 3 years. So in these 3 years, please, I hope, I mean, all the company will want to keep the project, but there's a possibility of not being able to do it. There might be different reasons. So if someone in this pre-license application process, if they quit it, if they just can't do it, will this capacity be granted to other companies? And before this process, Mr. Sabahattin talked about the renewable energy, 3 watts per square meter. It was an evaluation about this before the technical evaluation. Will it be as a guarantee, or will you calculate it in a different way or declare it with a different calculation? Because this is also important, and unproductive sites will be eliminated this way.
Biz de teşekkür ediyoruz.
Thank you very much. So let's start with Refik Bey. So you talked about the gap, like the winner of the tender, in case of this company can't implement this, and then will this site be granted to other investors? I would like to touch upon this part of the question. Unfortunately, because of the law, this can only be allocated to the winner of the tender. So you have to make another tender. So you can't grant this to the second runner of the past tender. You can't allocate this to another one. But I can promise something about this. After this 3,000 megawatts, we are working on getting periodic declarations and processes. So we are still working on it to evaluate the capacity that could not be used by the winners of the tenders for some reasons. We are working on making new declarations about this unused capacity. For example, there's a tender in a region, one company won this X company get this, and then they couldn't implement this, but we want to give it to the person Y. We can't do it because of the legislation. So we want to actually detect and set a second substituting company just in case the winner can't implement this. And everybody should know if they can't do it, someone else will do it. We want to do this, but the legislation doesn't let us to do it now, but we are working on it. Sabahattin Bey, I will give you the floor, but first of all, I'd like to tell something about this question. I actually mentioned something in my opening speech. The capacity extensions, the start point of the capacity extensions is actually this. Yes, this is a long process of evaluation, but just like Refik Bey told, because of the regulation, the restrictions of the regulation, you can make use of the capacity after the right is lost. So if the person lost their rights, then you can make use of the same capacity. It's just because of the law and because of the legislation. But with the new regulations, I hope we will see the driving force of the second runner or a substituting company in the future. Okay, here you go, Sabahattin Bey. Now, this is something that is not put into force. This is a technical issue, but the ones who know about this, the sector gave a big reaction. This is all interrelated with the measurements that are not taken in the right place, actually that cannot be made on the right site. And we foresee that the numbers will not be achieved in 2015 applications. We have a draft, but we will issue it with a lower number.
Şimdi ben karşı tarafa geçiyorum.
So now I'd like to ask something to Refik Bey too. This 92 license applications that are considered to be rejected. As far as I know, there are some rules and periods for application for license, and those 92 projects are obviously not complying with some criteria. So why don't you reject them? Or if you don't reject them, why don't you put them into tender? And this, why don't we let the other 500 projects not to be delayed? Okay, now we have to mention about the solar. Well, it's not, when we are talking about all the numbers and we are having a big challenge, it's not right. We rejected the 93 projects, 5 of them because of forest, and 36 of them the initial corridor or late stage extension. So why did we reject the forest issues when they were being applied. There wasn't this forest regulation, but how can I know this? And then why do you reject me after 2 years? Well, laws are important. If we forget about the law for one person, then it will reduce our trustworthiness. So if a law said you can't have a plant in a forest, it means you can't have a plant in the forest. So the other thing, the circular letter. Well, there's this judicial order. This can be discussed. You can sue, and you can have the investors can go to the court. But EPDK is based on the laws, and the Ministry of Forest gives a valid decision. And we also have to do whatever the laws require, because the law is binding for us, not anything else. So for the wind power, we will do the same. This is very clear. We have the preparations of geographical information system. I hope it will be enough until March, the beginning of the March, and we will prevent the process of the wind plants in the locations where it's not possible.
92 ile
And because talking about this 92, why didn't we give permission? It became complicated in solar power. The process was 1.5 years. And this new law coming into force, 6,446, and because of the secondary regulations, became not feasible, and this made a delay in the process, and we rejected them based on the 13th article. And the 13th article is the application is not in line with the procedures or lacking of documents. So these applicants are not evaluated and then rejected. They are rejected within the first month of the application. The delay, the reason of the delay is the change of the law and the secondary regulations, and the rejects that we made because of this 13th article. We prevented those plans because of the lack of documents. That's all. Hi everyone, I'm from Reconsult. My name is Melta Arslan. Ms. Sezen actually talked about many things I was also thinking, but Refik Bey, you talked about a database. I also wanted to make some contributions. Mining permits are a big problem for us because there are some permits about mining or explorations, but there are some changes because when we make the application, we talk about 2 years at least, and the situation changes. So is it possible for two institutions to have to be in cooperation? For example, in wind sites, we made some correspondence to the mining affairs director. We said we will make an application, but they can put it into the register. But if there is a application about mining, then they will waste all our efforts. And then civil air, civil aviation, they have been declaring different things. This is not only radar, this is BOR, IRS, different status, different things. And they're making declarations day by day, and the technical details are different. But we are handled in the same way. We have to be at the same proximity to all those points. However, the aims of those areas are different, but we still have to have the same proximity. It would be good to differentiate different points that we need to have proximity. And the design, another thing is the design of the turbines are different. The turbines have to have a proximity between each other, and then the transport, the constructions, the roads, there are some standards about them. So the plans are made based on these technical standards, but sometimes in the institutions, sometimes also including the Ministry of Forest, we have to explain them the technical details. For example, we had a permit and we are going to start cutting the trees, and they said, why are you cutting all of the trees? Just this turbine is covering a little place. But then we told them, we will have a crane in here. These things are going to be installed here. So it isn't like it looks from outside. So these technical things are still not known in the institutions such as the Ministry of Forest Affairs, which have a good role in this area. So there might be some trainings for those institutions actually to understand the situation better. Thank you. I took some notes. I hope I could write everything you mentioned. I think you have many complaints. I will say the same thing, predictability as EPD key. We are putting great importance to predictability and the rule of law, and we are trying to prepare our own legislations and to provide the transparency in work processes. But just like I showed you in the presentation, we have restricted human resources. And at the end of my presentation, I asked for cooperation. You can't say you are the public institution, you are going to do everything. So it's not possible because we have restricted resources. We can work together. It was what I think when I was preparing the presentation, but now I see the transparency and predictability and law are really required in this sector. Of course, two general directorates. Of course, I mean EPD key is not a general directorate. EPD key is the a different institution. It's a legal entity. However, it is integrated in the administration. It's a public institution. And about the data share, yes, we are trying to make our geographical information system until the match. We are hoping to do that. And we're also trying to do it in the coordination. We don't say we have to get all the data, we have to process all the data from all the institutions. We do our share, and other institutions will do their share, and we will have the connection and communication with those institutions. And I hope the data will be shared within these institutions. Of course, I can't promise you. I am working in the coordination, but I can't know exactly. There are some things if the mining areas on the paper, but no operation. But you should complain about it to the General Directorate of Mining. We don't have any share in that. If there is a mining thing going on the paper and it's not operating. And when we come to the block list about the civil aviation and the points and equipment, about the proximity issues, about you said there is this declaration of the list, but everything is taking place gradually. Yes, you are right. Detecting some sites where you can't have wind power plants, and we are trying to work on this to detect the sites on which you can't have the plants, but to prevent the delays, we are still working. Some participants from the sector will agree with that, and we have our reactions against the General Directorate of Forest Affairs and Ministry of Forest Affairs regarding this pre-license. The ministry now is thinking like, no, I can't give, we can't give permission during the pre-license. And lastly, you talked about the technical details and the training of the related institutions about the technical issues. Maybe not in the way you said, but we can try to do with our correspondence with institutions and also with guidelines we are preparing. So now we focused in the healthy process, but after we deal with the application process, then we can focus on already accepted projects to be carried out in a healthy way. But I think it's a little early for us to deal with those problems, but it will happen in the future, hopefully. Korazar from NL company. First of all, I'd like to thank you for all of your presentations. I have a question. Maybe it's not as important as other topics that have been discussed for today, but for the new feature, I think it will be more important. This wind data, the valid period, 3 years. I couldn't understand the reason of this. So how will we use this data after 4 years? Like, if, for example, in the 1st of January 2014, a wind measurement started, and then the result report will be approved in the 1st of January 2015. And how long will it be valid? Will it be valid until 2017 when you apply for license, or are we going to have more measurements from the current mast, or are we going to build a new mast to have a new measurement after these 3 years expires?
Well, you asked the mentality behind these. There's a Actually, it's not really wise to have a discussion between whether the data will be preliminary thing or other things. Well, we discussed this issue among ourselves. The end report, the result report may be valid, or the data may be valid as well. It depends on the situation itself. If according to the end calendar, if the data is still valid, you can make use of these data, but it's still not very certain which one will be the primary thing, whether the end result reports or the data. You may make an official application to the institution at the moment, to the APDK. If you make that application, we can present this as an agenda article to the board, and then we can give you all a clear result about it. And I'm really content to have this question. Well, actually, we are ahead of time, and I'll take the very last questions. Erinç Kısa from Polat Energy, Business Development Department, where we are developing our project at the moment and getting ready for the license application. Well, if there is an overlapping in the license application with the applied site, power plant site, if there is an overlapping with the previous ones, then the license application will be cancelled. There is something like that, but it is not clear, the reasons and so on. Well, we have a demand to have these information and knowledge related to that topic to be issued, announced before the application. Well, this question or this problem is a general problem, actually, the one you stated. This pre-license, the fields, the plant fields which are found suitable and don't have this pre-license process, or the ones without that. There are two processes ongoing, but we would like to have these two processes to go together, both the licensed and unlicensed processes, because this will enable a more fruitful utilization of the field. Well, but you know, the entrepreneur right of entrepreneurship is a constitutional right, so everyone has a right to make application and so on. Well, at the moment, unlicensed entrepreneurship at the moment is prohibited. You can't make an unlicensed entrepreneurship on the pasture ground or forest ground, fields and so on. When a competition wants to erect a turbine unlicensed, in an unlicensed way, if you did not nationalize, expropriate the property, then you can't intervene in. At the moment, as the APDK, we let them to do this. But as a result of this, no one, I mean, our institution do not accept the mentality of, okay, now I have this permission, but I was about to erect another turbine on that field and so on. Well, if the related if you are not affected, negatively not affected, of a new wind turbine erection in your own property, we prohibit that. But if you are not affected negatively, this is prohibited again. And also, if something like that happens, if as a property owner you have some complaints about this situation for the certain wind turbine to be shut down due to it prohibits your utilization of the property, then you can make application. And now another provision which came together with the law, together with the decision of the Ministry of the National Assembly of Turkey. This is not something which came out of the blue. This is something necessary which came into action according to the needs. Well, what about the probable fields? If they are affected, the fields that you are planning to make application, what kind of solution will be done? At the moment, we have not created any solution for that, but in the following steps, maybe we can create solutions, individual solutions for each problem. If not, I don't know what will happen, because I can't predict all of the I can't answer all of the questions by making simple predictions at the moment. I can just answer them based on the current situation. Well, we will have the case-by-case mentality. We will try to solve the problems which can be solved, and we will do our best for the other ones where there is no actual solution. Well, I believe that question was answered right at the end of your speech. Well, actually, we can control whether there is an overlapping about the licensed and unlicensed ones. But think about the number of the application. There are 1,500 projects applied, you know. Analyzing whether they are overlapping or not, and so on. These are all technical issues, ongoing technical issues, but with the current amendments, with the current steps done, now the negative effects are reduced at a significant rate. During the license application, if there is an overlapping, well, imagine this way. If in your own plant field, within your plant field framework, if someone comes to make application unlicensedly, if we let him to do that, then we should do the vice versa. If there are numbers of the applications for the wind turbine are slight, then we should first analyze the interaction with your own turbines in the related field, and then we can think about
Bak, bir mikrofon verelim.
Okay, the last question.
İyi günler.
Hello. Hark Energy. I'm from Hark Energy. I have two questions, one to Mr. Refik, one to Sabahattin Bey. As Mr. Refik said, the indispensable thing in the pre-license application is the measurement result report. My question is, NGM and accredited institution, there is a phrasing of NGM and accredited institution. As far as I know, there is no accredited institution so far. I'm sorry, MGM. So it will be MGM that we are going to apply to. Second question, in the process, in the assessment process, I believe we will have a result, but we have a period less than 6 months. Can you predict a date for that? Thank you. Well, prediction is right. We do not expect any accredited institution approval for the 2015 applications. Yes, so the prediction is enough. Well, the amendment in the technical regulation, if you followed up the recent things, a couple of weeks ago, we launched the power plant field specification information related to that. But it's in the past we were in the opinion of that due to these measurements, the expectations would rise, so let's increase the limits. But the comments coming from the sector itself showed it wrong, proved it wrong, and we made a difference. So, but I don't believe that any amendment will be done to the technical regulations. It will remain like that because we did everything what can be done at the moment for the power plants technical erection.
Sabahtan beri herkes konuşuyor. Gayet güzel konuşmacılarımızı dinledik, bilgilendik.
Well, since morning we had so much informative presentations, and it's clear that we have some problems in our country. Okay, these all are right, but the public itself, it has a role in my opinion. If they can announce it periodically, all these processes, if, let's say, we have what will be the capacity in 2018 or other years, if we have all these information beforehand, I believe this abundance of information and problems will be reduced. Well, if we go back to the mosque example, everyone cannot just go to a single mosque. It is important to create a suitable number of mosques for everyone who can go and who can reach within their own potentiality. Well, this is a good example to have a couple of, let's say, mosques, the prayer times of which are specified. You made a nice example. Thank you. In terms of electricity, the capacity, I want to make a contribution. With the new legislations, the measurement of the current capacity and so on, they all have references in the legislation. The TWEC did the capacity survey, capacity work, and submitted the results to the APDK, the Energy Market Regulatory Authority. As you said, as we said before, actually, this is a transition period, actually. In 2015, we will have more concrete and stable processes. And we are planning to make a capacity declaration in the certain years. But if you keep the certain capacity at one place, we wouldn't be able to actually talk about all these figures, because that 14,000 megawatt capacity that was predicted is quite something high, and we believe this number, predicted number, will increase year by year. And as you said, we are planning to make capacity declaration at certain time intervals. In the solar power, we actually achieved quite good numbers, and you will see other explanations in the. I guess that will be the very last question, hopefully, because we are ahead of time. Hello, Emre Demirel. I have questions to the APDK and Renewable Energy Directorate representatives. These 94 projects that we received that were rejected, there is a sentence telling that due to the report, in compliance with the report from the Renewable Energy Directorate, the width of corridor is not suitable. But this width of the corridor is of 6 meters. Why cannot we put panels in that? And by the way, we also need a road for that. I mean, we can't carry them by hand. We need a road. So, and these roads for the panel carriage, they have other utilization purposes as well. I wonder in which article, or is there any kind of legal article specifying this width of corridor? All I know is that the corridor should be multiple angled thing, but I don't believe that this is a negative thing. Well, in the regulation there's a article regarding this issue telling that, just like for the solar energy power plants, there should be a security band, 10-meter security band. But the width, the volume of that corridor should be sufficient enough for this security band. Some of this guard band, some of the applications doesn't have sufficient figures, and that's why we have to turn them down. Apologies for interrupting, but having a guard bands in both sides and having a width of 6 meters, which is a abundant of space in my opinion, were eliminated. At least our company's project was eliminated, even though they have 2 bands in 2 sides and another space of 6 meters. Well, this corridor and the tail issue got quite long. Well, as the institution, we had a technical specification which were telling about the certain measures of the corridor, and in these corridors, due to security criteria, the panel building is not suitable. Well, we make this decision and tell you, okay, fine. What this means? This means that the physical connection between the panel buildable area is lost. That's the reason why we rejected this project. But again, I'm telling you, legal rules are a priority always. Well, you always criticize me, and now I want to criticize you. Receiving our notifications and comics with our emails, we send them to them all, But there are still companies which claim that they did not receive these certain documents. And there are even some companies which try to sue us that they do not receive our notifications and commits. That's why in my presentation I stated that it is of great importance to have registered email addresses. This is a quite base point. And as long as the notification law is not changed, this is indispensable to have registered email addresses. Again, back to the corridors. For whatever reason you want to use the corridor, it doesn't matter. You can use it for any purpose. But what we look at is that the field, the whole field should have panels should be buildable to the whole field. What is important for us is here the physical integrity of the power plant, of the field. If, as you claimed, if your situation is as you claimed, we expect your objection. And if there is a mistake, we are ready to compensate for it, to do whatever is necessary. Well, again, predictability and security of law is important. And as I said, we gave our decisions and we are expecting your rejections. Every company who plans to make any rejection, please, you are invited to do that. And in the first 3 quarters of the next year, we are planning to do everything in the best way, as long as all the companies are doing their share in this process. So that's all. Thank you. Yes, we are ahead of our time greatly. But I believe that it was quite fruitful to have this Q&A session too, apart from the presentations. In the following process, I believe we will have fast process, a better one. I thank you all for your participation. We have a slight flag ceremony. Thank you.